county line.
Okay.
It's that area to the right.
Mm.
There's a park back there.
Oh, I know that. On the west side, right?
We're losing 9-2 though.
Oh, no, that's not good.
Okay. It's 8-year-old baseball.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
ready? Everybody ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Village Board meeting this September 23rd, 2019. To honor our nation's heroes and especially to honor the men and women in uniform who serve and protect our community, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Horvath, please call the roll.
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Chen.
Here.
Trustee Fink.
Here.
Trustee John.
Here.
Trustee Rudolph.
Here.
Trustee Sifferman.
Here.
And Trustee Terrell.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Having read the agenda, does any trustee have an addition or deletion to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to our first order of business today. That's public comment. During this portion of the meeting, members of the public are invited to address the board. We ask that speakers please limit their remarks to 3 minutes. Is there anyone present who wishes to address the board this evening? Good evening, Mrs. Moon.
Good morning, Elizabeth. Good evening and happy fall to everyone. I just was reviewing all the information I got from Aaron regarding the testing that the village did on our water. And I don't know if you guys remember, but the first meeting I told her that the village came out, tested my water, and it was 671 TDS, total dissolved
Solids.
Thank you. And she insisted that that was okay. And the water is okay to drink. And I told her that on my sheet from the EPA, it says 500 was the limit. And she sat there and she said she's got other records that shows that her EPA says it's okay. So maybe there's 2 EPAs, I don't know. But from Village of Western Springs, after reviewing it, it says here, IEPA limit is 500. So I just wanted to just say that I'm not crazy. I'm old, but I'm not crazy yet. But anyway, it wasn't okay to drink. It exceeded that limit. And then with the uranium found in my water from the outside testing, it was really concerning. You know, now I've had 3 different cancer surgeries, and I stopped drinking the water on August 12th. My water was never discolored. It did smell funny, and it tasted funny, but it wasn't discolored. And that's alarming. Now, I have nothing to stand on because I didn't go and get a blood test right away, so I have no proof that I was affected by the uranium in that water or any other, contaminants in that water. But people that are worse off than I am, that are really suffering with illnesses, that could have had a really big effect on them. And I just think that sitting here in front of everybody saying 671 was okay to drink was wrong to do. And that's all.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you very much. Ingrid, did you want to say?
Yes, Mrs. Moon, if you could, Erin right now is not here tonight, but when she does come into the office, we will discuss it with her, and we can discuss it with you, and if you can provide us with the paperwork that you have.
Okay, I did drop off on my testing to the following day. I dropped it off with Erin and President Gallagher.
Okay.
And Erin has copies of this because she sent it to me. She hand-delivered it, stuck it in my front door.
Okay.
So,
And maybe now, Director Supert, if you could maybe address the uranium issue.
oh, and that could be discussed later.
No, we'll discuss
Oh,
it
no,
now.
we'd like to discuss it,
Okay.
follow through.
Sure. I can also kind of address the hardness, the total solid hardness,
Thank
solids
you.
issue as well. I'll address that one first just because it's brought up. So what you're referring to, the 500 milligrams per liter for the total solid solids, the IPA has 2 what they call maximum contaminant levels, MCLs. There's a primary and a secondary. Secondary MCLs, and I don't know if Aaron provided you the document, but it is on the IEPA's website. We have it linked on our website as well. Secondary MCLs are for those things which don't present any sort of public health issue, but present aesthetic, taste, or odor, or visual issues with the water. TDS is one of those components that falls under the secondary MCL. So when you exceed that 500 limit, it's not classified by the IEPA as any health risk, but it presents those taste or odor issues. So that's what Erin was trying to explain when she was talking about for the total dissolved solids.
Are there primary IPA limits? And so why wasn't I given that?
I'm not aware of a primary MCL for total dissolved solids. The only thing that's listed that I'm aware of is the secondary MCL.
Okay. And then the other thing is that you wanted to talk about the uranium. Is there anything going to be done with that? I mean, will you be testing for
So
that?
really, so we do test for that when the IEPA requires it. They have their own schedule for that. There are a group of radionuclides associated with groundwater in general. Our Illinois Department of Health talks about those. They are naturally occurring as part of being a limestone aquifer. They're typically not a concern. So we've tested for radium per the IEPA's requirement in 2009 and 2015. The maximum contaminant level for that, and that's a primary MCL, is 30 picocuries per liter. Our results, and I haven't seen your results here myself, our results from 2009, that was prior to our RO treatment plant, was 0.06. So remember, it's 30 picocuries per liter, and our results were 0.06. And then in 2015, it was actually slightly lower at 0.04 picocuries.
Okay, that's all.
So-
I don't know.
So sure, yeah, so we're under,
Saying that water was okay to drink.
yes, it falls within the IEPA and Department of Health's regulations. We're far below the MCL, which is 30 picocuries.
Even though the thermal volt for uranium is zero.
I'm sorry, I need you to refer to the podium. I need the mic.
Even though, is it okay if I face him, or do I talk to you, or?
Well, just so the microphone catches your voice, yeah.
So what you just said, that still mean, okay, if the federal goal is zero for uranium, you're still saying that that water is okay to drink?
Yes, I don't know what the federal goal you're referring to. The MCL is the federal standard that you can't exceed.
Okay.
So
Did Erin happen to share the report from my outside source?
I have not,
with
because
you?
she's been out of the office last week, so I have not had a
You've
chance
it
to
for
see
2
what she's
weeks in
talking.
the office.
I haven't had a chance to talk to her. We were,
Your office has had it for 2 weeks.
okay. I haven't had a chance to see that.
And maybe that would explain more. That's what I was going by. That's the only, I don't test for uranium myself.
Sure. Understood.
I do recall that the level for your uranium, I think, was 0.02.
Correct.
That
It
was
was very
tested,
low.
so it was very low and well below that 30. Once again, I think uranium is naturally occurring, but of course, it's, nobody wants to hear that it is in the water, but it's in groundwater, it's in well water, it's in bottled water, so it is.
I don't know that. I would have to have that checked.
Okay.
I would have to have that checked, yeah. And it didn't make me feel comfortable. I'm glad I stopped after 12 days of drinking it. I'm glad I stopped drinking the well water from Western Springs here after 12 days. I don't know how I would have felt if I would have been drinking it longer than that. As I said, I did have a different taste and the smell was different, but my water was pretty clear most of the time. And, yeah, but anyway, if you're still saying it's okay to drink, so be it. There's nothing I could do. All I'm saying is that I don't think it's okay to drink. I think that it was terrible to be told for the village members it's okay to drink. I don't know.
Well,
I don't
thank
know.
you for your
So how-
comments.
Yes, and that's how I feel, I don't know.
All right.
So be it.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Tom Pronis. I'm at 5136 Woodland in Western Springs. I'll be brief. On May 3rd, 2007, the Illinois Supreme Court issued its opinion in a case called Dowling versus Chicago Options Associates. In its opinion, the court affirmatively recognized 3 types of retainers available to attorneys in Illinois: the classic retainer, the security retainer, and the advance payment retainer. On page 12 of the opinion, the court stated as follows: any written retainer agreement, regardless of the type of retainer agreement contemplated, should clearly define the kind of retainer agreement paid. I have a copy of the retainer agreement right here between Mr. Jurzik's office and the Village of Western Springs. Anybody want a copy of this?
I'm sure we have it.
Perfect. Okay. It states, although it looks more like a one-sided fee arrangement, it has retainer language that's been used as a contractual arrangement. It states that as a retainer for $17.50 a month, Mr. Jurzik will attend and prepare for these village meetings. That sounds like a good arrangement. Nevertheless, nowhere on this form does it state the type of retainer agreement it is, as required by the Supreme Court ruling. So I think we might have a problem. One could argue that this agreement could be null and void, invalid. Furthermore, one might argue that it's unconscionable. I'm not here to argue or to take a side on that issue today. I'm not a judge or a jury. So where am I going with this? About a month ago, I escalated a very serious issue to each of you about a situation where my property was damaged and my pregnant wife, subsequently newborn child, and other child were being harassed on an ongoing basis. Not one of you responded to my complaint. My family continues to be harassed. What I did receive was a letter from Mr. Jurzik with legalese. The problem for Mr. Jurzik is that based on an Illinois Supreme Court ruling, one could argue that he didn't have the authority to handle these matters, as he might or might not have had a valid retainer in place. Nevertheless, I have a draft copy here of the lawsuit, which I intend to file. But my recommendation is, Mr. Jurzik, that you have a proper retainer in place before we move forward. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Dunveston. I live at 1312 Walker. I have two different things I wanted to ask about. We live, Walker Street is parallel to the tracks, and we live across from the pool. So I'm interested in understanding more about the TIF district, because the pool, I understand, is within it, and I'm not sure if our property is within the district. I wasn't able to find on the website if there was a map of the TIF district from Howard to the tollway, and how, like, if somebody could help me, direct me to how to see that, that would be of interest. So that was one item. And
Okay.
then related to that, I wondered about adjacent neighbors such as us, and if we were gonna be, mailed or notified in writing for the public hearings, because obviously it's right across the street from me. So I would
Yes.
like to know specifics about what's gonna happen with the TIF district.
You will be notified. Attorney Jarusa can, I think it's all residents within a certain number of feet of the TIF district, so.
Yeah, the service club is, the pool is, the
Yeah.
property's within the TIF, the proposed TIF district. Actually, tomorrow there'll be a mailing going out to all residents living within 750 feet of the proposed TIF boundary, so you will
Okay.
fall within that.
Okay.
We do have a TIF map, and then we also have a PIN map, so you can work with Marty and you can look at all the properties within the proposed TIF
Perfect.
and look at the pins, and you can see if your property is located within that TIF.
Excellent, okay.
Um,
So is that's on the website,
um,
or no?
Yeah, and Marty has a copy right there.
Oh,
Yeah,
excellent.
and if your property is located within the TIF district, you'll get a different notice than the notice that goes to folks outside the TIF district within 750 feet of
Okay.
its boundary. So you'll get notice either way of the process. And
Cool.
there's actually a schedule that the board has, and that Marty has, or the clerk has, and you can get a copy of the proposed TIF schedule as well.
Perfect.
Um,
Okay,
so-
that's what I
So,
wanted.
so residences can be in the TIF district.
Yes, there are very few residential properties in this TIF district because it's a business corridor TIF, but there may be a couple.
I didn't think that.
I don't
her
believe her
was-
property is, but I don't want to make that comment as I sit here, but we'll,
Okay.
we'll identify that for you.
Perfect, okay. So the second item I wanted to ask about relates to the tollway project. We all know there's like a zillion different phases and zillion different things going on with that project. I wondered if the village had contemplated assembling kind of like a village-focused schedule. In other words, just for the tollway project pieces that affect us, you know, when is the BNSF, temporary bridge going into place? When is it gonna be returned to the regular tracks? Are the barrier walls coming down? When are the barrier walls supposed to go back up? So all the various different things that relate specifically to us, if any of the bridges are gonna be closed for a time. Now, I know we aren't in control of that, and I know everything's might be a little loosey-goosey, but if we at least had kind of a tentative timetable, or, even if you did it, say, by quarters of a year or something like that, I think it would be of interest to many residents to have at least a feel for when we're gonna be impacted the most.
Well, that's a good idea. We do publish it on our website.
And we have it on the website. We have the
But
tollways.
is it Western Springs focused, or is it
It's
tollway
Western
focused?
Springs focused also.
is?
Yes,
Oh,
it is,
okay.
because you can tell when the main line work is gonna start and so forth.
There's a
We are
timeline.
subject to their schedule, so.
No, yeah, and I get
we just
that.
never know
Right.
when something and we know approximately when and so
Yeah.
forth. And also, the tollway has information. We have community alerts that we send out whenever we find out something is upcoming or so.
Right, and I
That's
signed up
on
for
there.
that, so I'm seeing those,
Yes,
yeah.
that's a very good thing. But for the next quarter, I can put something together and we can put it up
Yeah, I
on the
just thought it would be
website.
interesting. One of the concerns I have is my mom lives in Commonwealth, so she's by one of the barrier walls. And I'm calling them that, I don't know what the tollway calls them, but you
Sound
guys
walls.
know what I mean, right?
That's
right. Right.
Anyway, it seems like they're starting to move in her neighborhood and set up some equipment there, et cetera.
Okay.
And so I'm just a little concerned that if they take the barrier wall down now, it's gonna be down for 4 years or 5 years.
Oh.
And, it would be reassuring to hear otherwise, maybe is a better way to put it. So, anyway, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Under new business, we have one item. Trustee Rudolph, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Yes, we are going to talk about our bond issuance, and I think we are going to have a presentation or an update from Brenda Houston.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Earlier today, there were 4 bidders for your 2019 bond issue. Those 4 underwriters submitted a total of 12 different bids. The best one was submitted by R.W. Baird, Robert W. Baird, at 2.66. The next bid was at 2.68. We were happy with the number of bids. I mean, that was a nice showing to have 4 different underwriters and have them put in multiple bids. That just about takes care of it. We, of course, recommend that you accept this bid. And if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. A question?
Why would 4 put in 3 different types of bids apiece?
Well, there are 2 types of formats that we have for bidding. One is a closed format where the underwriters have to put in their best bid, that's it, they can't change it. The open format, the underwriters can see their position with their bids. If they're like in second place and say, no, I really want these bonds, they don't know anybody else's interest rate that they've bid, but that underwriter can submit another bid. And if his bid or her bid is better than the best bid, then with the open format, the auction itself gets extended for another 2 minutes. So there are times when, say, the original 15-minute auction period can last a half an hour. I haven't seen any longer than that, and I hope I never see any longer than that. So, but that was the format we used with your bonds. I mean, it was an attractive financing. I mean, nice blocks of bonds in every maturity. And of course, I mean, you guys are a AA2 by Moody's, and you've maintained that for quite some time. So you're attractive to underwriters. I mean, they can sell you guys easy to their ultimate purchasers.
So how does that rate rank, would you say, in today's market?
I would say that is a very, 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 very good bid, at
Okay.
2.66. Not, this is kind of not, this is for information only. This really isn't exactly geared to what you're asking. But, this issue is part of a three-part authorization from a referendum back in 2017. And in 2017, your first bond issue for, I believe it was $4,500,000 was sold. At that time, those bonds went for 2.99. I mean, here we are 2 years later. I mean, I thank the market gods. I mean, it's nice that the market is, holding out for us. It's still on the strong side. And the length of your bonds are just about the same as the bond issue back in 2017, yet you've got a 2.66.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I guess about the maturity date, so are all of our bonds going to be maturing in 2035?
No.
No, so the first issue is,
With most, how am I going to say this?
Yeah.
There are bond issues where
Yeah.
there's only one maturity. All
Right.
the bonds will mature
Right.
on that maturity. But by law, you can go out for a certain number of years depending on the bonds you're selling. And this issue could have gone out 20 years. So what happens is that a portion of your bonds they mature. They get paid off year after year after year. So your bonds, the first maturity would be 12/1/2020. And then you'll have some more paid off in 21 and 22 until we get down to your 2035, I believe, was your last maturity?
yes.
Yep.
Yep, I mean, and I see that the last year is a slightly different interest rate, but it's blended to make that.
Yeah, all of those rates are, this is not very professional. They're kind of smushed together.
Yeah.
And you come up with one rate.
Right,
So
I understand.
that's how
And
you get the
their-
2.66.
The average life matches, I know how that works. Okay. Okay, so when were the first bonds that we issued, when are those maturing? The 4 million?
I do have my maturity schedule. on
Okay,
that.
yeah.
So just in case, the last maturity would be in 2033.
Okay.
And on both of these issues, you do have a call feature. In 2026, you have the power to sell another bond issue to refund the outstanding bonds of these two issues. All that depends on what the market is doing. I mean, obviously, if interest rates are higher, you're not going to sell bonds with a higher interest rate to pay these off. But if it's lower, then of course you're going to. It's kind of like refunding a mortgage.
So that's the option. Okay,
It's nice to have that option. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Do you want to make
So-
a motion?
Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the bid. Is that what I do?
Yeah,
Or am I
accept
gonna
the
read the
report,
ordinance first?
and then,
Accept the low bid interest rate,
Okay,
and then we can move into
The
the ordinance.
Okay.
separate.
all right, so then I'll make a motion to accept the low bid from Robert Baird of Milwaukee at 2.6679%.
is there a second?
I'll second that bid.
Okay. Roll call vote. Clerk Horvath, may we have a roll call vote?
Certainly, Madam President. Trustee Rudolph.
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee John.
Aye.
We need the president's vote.
Not on that vote.
That completes the vote.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And now the ordinance,
Okay,
please.
and now I'll read the ordinance that goes along with this. Ordinance 19-2969, an ordinance providing for the issuance of $3,500,000 general obligation bonds, Series 2019 of the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois, for the purpose of making road and street improvements within the corporate boundaries and under the jurisdiction of the village, and for the payment of the expenses incident thereto, providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient for the payment of the principal of and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the sale of said bonds.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt that ordinance. Is there a second?
I'd second that motion.
Okay.
And just to note, the bear interest has been put into the draft ordinance that you have before you, and the president will vote on this ordinance.
Clerk Horvath, may we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Rudolph.
Aye.
Trustee Zifferman.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee John.
Aye.
And President Gallagher.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes that section of a new business. We'll move on now to the next agenda item, which is a presentation by Anthony Tyndall of the Forest Preserve of Cook County. Mr. Tyndall, thank you for your patience, and thank you for coming this evening to present to the board.
No problem, thank you for having me. I'm actually Troy Showerman, and you couldn't make it tonight.
Okay.
My name is Troy Showerman, I'm with the Forest Preserves of Cook County, I'm in our Department of Resource Management. I'm a resource project manager, so I manage our forestry and ecological restoration contracts. And the Department of Resource Management is basically in charge of all the natural areas for the forest preserves, trails, ecology, botany, things like that. So I'm just gonna kind of give a really quick overview presentation about the forest preserves and some of the things that we offer. Hopefully it's just a reminder for everybody. Just trying to kind of get the word out, make sure people realize all that's out there. So you have a couple slides. And again, I'm gonna try to go quick, so here's a map of the forest preserves. Don't worry about green versus yellow. That's all it's about 11% of the county is in forest preserve. So we are right about here, just south of our Salt Creek preserves. So this is kind of a zoomed in map of the local area, where you've got Ogden Avenue to the south here, 294. So just to point out some highlights that we have locally, I'm also a Western Springs resident, I'll left that out. So we have two nature preserves, State of Illinois Nature Preserves, which is Wolf Road Prairie and Salt Creek Nature Preserve. At Bemis South, we have the Go Abe Zipline Course, which people might be familiar with. Meadowlark Golf Course is right here. We also have Salt Creek itself, which kind of bisects the preserves here, and the Salt Creek Bike Trail, which you can't see, but sort of runs like this, that way. So just kind of a quick recap of what we have locally. I don't remember how many acres this is, but it's over 1,000 acres of forest preserve. So our main goal of the Forest Preserve District is to protect and restore land, conservation-based organization. Cook County is the second largest county in the country. It's also the most ecologically diverse. About 90% of the state-listed species in Cook County occur on forest preserve property. It's basically the most diverse county in Illinois, and that really has to do with, because of the lake, we have a series of, east of us was woodlands, west of us was prairie. Illinois gets kind of scrunched in the middle, and because of the lake, we have these unique ecotypes that produce all kinds of different biodiversity. And so these are all pictures from forest preserve property. You can experience any of these types of habitat. And then sort of the second part of our goal as an organization is to connect the citizens back to nature. So we do that in a variety of ways. We have 5 campgrounds. We have 5 nature centers, which are free. We have over 300 miles of trails, both bike trails, horse trails, walking trails. We do have 3 aquatic centers. We have over 200 permitted picnic groves across the county. Then we also have canoe rentals, kayak rentals. We have over 40 fishing lakes, which you can fish for free. Almost everything other than the campgrounds, the zip line, and renting a canoe is free. In 2015, we started our celebration of our 100-year anniversary. The Forest Preserves was founded in 1915, made its first purchase in 1916. And as part of that celebration, we sort of looked back and said there was a group of people that were very visionary to create the Forest Preserve District 100 years ago. What do we want this to look like 100 years from now? So several of our partners got together and created the Next Century Conservation Plan. And And since then, we've really been trying to tie everything we do back to that plan. So there's specific goals that I'm not really gonna get into in there. But it's really about protecting the land, increasing the health of the land, and then connecting people back to it. And so since then, everything that we've done is based on this plan. All the positions are tied to the plan, all of our decisions, it's either, this is moving us towards the plan, this is moving us away from the plan, and making decisions on that line. So we started working with a lot of our partners. We formed task force to sort of address these goals and how we're gonna reach these goals in the next 30 to 100 years. Two of our biggest partners are the Chicago Botanic Garden and the Grove-Field Zoo. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the zoo. Those are actually both on Forest Preserve property, which not a lot of people know. And I don't want to use the number because I'll screw it up, but they get a percentage of our tax base goes to both of those organizations to help offset their operation costs. So they're our two biggest partners for good reason. The Forest Preserve actually owns almost all the buildings at the zoo, especially the older ones. So that's just kind of makes it unique to other land management agencies. So what really came out of that plan was that we have about 30,000 acres that were prioritized for restoration. Right now we have at the beginning of the plan we had about 4,000 that we thought were in good health. So the goal is to get to 30,000 out of our 70,000 holdings. And so part of this, having these partnerships, was that we needed to have help. We needed outside groups, nonprofits. We work with Open Lands, the Nature Conservancy, Friends of the Forest Preserves, several other groups. And started looking at some of the benefits the Forest Preserve provides. So there was a study done that came up with a $460 million annual benefit for having these lands in a conserved state as opposed to being developed. The biggest reason for that is for flood prevention. If you look back at the map I showed before, we own a lot of property along the Des Plaines River, along the North Branch River, along Salt Creek, that if it was otherwise developed, would be that much more runoff and flooding issues we'd be dealing with. So that's about 10 times our annual budget. So about a 10 to 1 return. So I doctored this slide. This is actually in our budget book for the city of Chicago. But I took my own tax bill and put little colored pieces over there so it was a JPEG and I could change it. So Forest Reserve on my tax bill is 0.79% of what I pay, which is about $100 a year. The average home in Chicago spends $45 a year for the Forest Preserve. So for all that free stuff I mentioned, it's $45 a year. Compared to something like the Water Reclamation District, which is incredibly important, that's about 5% of my tax bill. So just kind of quickly summarize the vision, the whole point of the Forest Preserves, what we're trying to get out there is just to make sure everybody realizes all these different amenities that we have, try to connect as many people back, to get people out to experience the Forest Preserves, both on the recreation side of things and also to have an appreciation for the conservation benefit. And to try to encourage people to participate, which could just be walking on a bike trail, but also especially advocate. So hopefully, making presentations to boards like yourselves to, get the word out there that these things are available for the health and benefit of all citizens. And then, of course, if people do have time to volunteer, we do have a robust volunteer program. There's several in the vicinity of Western Springs that do restoration. They have work days, they host work days, all volunteer run, and as well as, some people who do provide financial support. So that's it. I tried to go fast. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer whatever I can.
If our residents do want to volunteer, do you have a contact number, or how should they do that?
So fpdcc.com is our website, /volunteer will get you to our volunteer page. They post, there's a bunch of information up there. We actually provide training classes for people who want to learn about conservation and actually do the work. There's also, they post all the work days up there, so each weekend, each week, different groups schedule work days. I know there's a volunteer group at Salt Creek Nature Preserve, Wolf Road Prairie, Bemis South, which are those three along Ogden. There's also a bunch in the Palos area, which is not too far. and they're all very active. Like I know at Ted Stone, which is at LaGrange and 55, just north of 55, they
Okay.
have a work day every Wednesday and every Saturday. They cut brush, bring beer, make food. It's a big community, so, but yeah, I'd start with the website.
Okay, great. And then the restoration areas you mentioned, are there any nearby here, or?
Yes, so, can scroll back to that map. So there's several. So as part of that plan where I said we had 30,000 acres that we'd prioritize, so this is what this map came from. This is the number 6. We actually broke the forest preserve into 15 units, landscape units. So Salt Creek is ranked number 6. And this was actually done with state biologists, so this wasn't just the forest preserve. So Wolf Road Prairie, this is one of the only remnant tallgrass prairies left in the Chicagoland area. And when I say remnant, I mean it wasn't farmed, it wasn't developed or anything. So if you go out there, that's a very, very small piece of how it used to look in the whole area. So that's very unique in the area. So that's one of our highest quality sites.
Is it accessible? I mean, can people walk into it?
Absolutely. It's kind of a cool story. There's actually sidewalks in there because it was going to get developed in the 30s, just like most of Westchester got developed, and the people who owned it lost their money in the market crash, and then everything just went into foreclosure, and it basically sat there until we bought it. The DNR owns half the property out there as well. But so they actually have a nature center that's run by volunteers up right where that blinker is. And there's also pull-offs on 31st Street that you can just park, and then there's these sidewalks that run north-south.
It won't be developed, it'll stay open lands.
Never, yeah, will never be developed.
There's only parking off 31st though, right? Or is there parking
There's
up
parking
north?
on this I don't know the name of the street, but there's,
Okay.
it's a residential street, it's called the Prairie House, and then they do have like 8 parking spots up there.
Oh, okay.
It's where it looks like would be turning into, there's townhouses or something there. Is that where
Yes,
that is?
that's where it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So that's one of our highest quality. We do a lot of work at Salt Creek Nature Preserve. So these are all broken into priorities. This is number 1. This is number 2. Bemis North is number 3. So these yellow blobs are actually areas we've been working in, the yellow and orange. So we're actually doing a lot of work right here. The number 1 priority for us is Palos, which is just south of us in Palos Heights and Willow Springs. That's 11,000 acres. That's pretty much contiguous forest preserve. That's our number 1 priority. That's where we're doing a ton of work.
So restoration means taking out underbrush, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so it's trying to get it back to a natural community that existed pre-settlement, sort of, that's the easiest way to describe it. But
Okay.
it's mostly removal of invasive species, which tends to be woody, but there's also vegetative invasive species that we deal with. So it's a lot of labor, mostly clearing.
I've noticed from the bike path that if you walk on that path, one side is trees and grass, the other side is just
Exactly.
brush. Is that what, are you gonna keep one side, or are you gonna do the whole thing?
If we had money to do the whole thing, we'd
Okay.
do the whole thing. So what you're seeing is the difference between
Right.
having invasive species, which is mainly buckthorn, which is a European shrub that's terrible, we have it everywhere, versus areas we've done work in and kept open. And that's the exact perfect way to describe it.
Very, very pretty with the not the buckthorn side, but the other side is, I wanted to ask you about, is number 3 here, is that golf course, is that forest preserve or is that private?
Meadowlark on the south side of 31st is forest preserve. This is Chicago Highlands Golf Course, which is a private course. So
Is
that
that
number, that number 3 is Crowley Place.
Oh, 'cause is that forest preserve land, that Highlands?
Highlands is not.
Okay.
But Meadowlark is.
Oh, man, all right.
Any other questions for Mr. Sharman?
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the presentation. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, other business. We have one item under other business tonight. Trustee Terrell, if you wanted to mention that.
Yes, I do. I'm pleased to report that the village board and Manager Velkme have agreed to an extension of her employment agreement. The contract includes an increase to her compensation that is competitive with the compensation paid to other village managers in surrounding towns. It is well earned, and I'm very happy that you have agreed to that.
Thank you.
It is a privilege and honor to serve.
Thank you very much. We are happy that you're staying on, and I do want to mention that the board discussed this in closed session prior to discussing it then in open session, so thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on now to the consideration of an action on our agenda items. The Illinois state statutes allow a municipality to collectively vote on a group of ordinances, resolutions, and other motions such as awards of contract, appointments, etc. This is known as an omnibus vote. All the items contained on the omnibus vote list have been previously discussed by the President and Board of Trustees on at least one occasion and often on several occasions. By placing them on the omnibus vote list, a single vote may be taken to approve them. A trustee may remove any item from the list and have it discussed and voted on separately prior to the omnibus vote. Is there such a request this evening? Hearing none, move on again. Trustee Terrell.
President Gallagher, I move that the following ordinances, resolutions, and motions as contained on the meeting agenda for September 23rd, 2019 be adopted and/or approved under an omnibus vote. Agenda item number 2, approval of the meeting minutes of August 19th and September 9th, 2019, as read. Agenda item number 3, ordinance 19-2970, calling for a public hearing and a joint review board meeting to consider the designation of a redevelopment project area and the approval of a redevelopment plan and project for the Village of Western Springs Downtown North Tax Increment Financing District. Agenda item number 4, ordinance 19-2971, authorizing the disposal of surplus personal property owned by the Village of Western Springs Department of Fire and Emergency Services, miscellaneous equipment. Agenda item number 5, ordinance 19-2972, approving and authorizing the execution of third amendments to the standard water tower lease agreements entered into with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC relative to the installation and operation of certain telecommunications facilities adjacent to and on the village water tower located at the 1300 Burlington Avenue property, which Spring Rock Park site, and on the village water tower located at the 348th Street property, Garden Market site. Agenda item number 6, ordinance 19-2973, approving and authorizing the execution of First Amendment to the standard water tower lease agreement entered into with T-Mobile Central LLC relative to the installation and operation of certain telecommunications facilities adjacent to and on the village water tower located at the 348th Street property, the Garden Market site. Agenda item number 7, ordinance 19-2974, approving and authorizing the execution of First Amendments to the standard water tower lease agreement entered into with Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless, relative to the installation and operation of certain telecommunications facilities adjacent to and on the village water tower located at the 1300 Burlington Avenue property, the Spring Rock Park site, and on the village water tower located at the 348th Street property, the Garden Market site. Agenda item number 8, ordinance 19-2975, approving and authorizing the execution of a warranty deed, pins 18-07-400-067 and 18-06-318-032, consisting of TW-5-16-025, TW-5-16-039.1, TW-5-16-039.2, TW-5-16-070.01, and TW-5-16-070.02, a grant of permanent easement parcel TW-5-16-039P, a grant of permanent easement parcel TW-5-16-070.01P, and a temporary construction easement parcels number TW-5-16-07.0 T, and easements, at TW-15-16-07-072 T, and TW-5-16-07.03 T, for conveyance of real property and easements to the Illinois State Toll Highway to construct certain improvements to this Tri-State Tollway I-294 and the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway BNSF RR Bridge MP 26.6 Bridge Number 261, and other village public infrastructure improvements. Agenda item number 9, Resolution 19-2503, determining to levy an additional library tax for construction, maintenance, repairs, and alterations of library buildings and equipment for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2020, and ending December 31st, 2020. Agenda item number 10, Resolution 19-2504, for maintenance of streets and highways by municipality under the Illinois Highway Code for appropriation and expenditure of IDOT motor fuel tax funds for salt purchase and sidewalk replacement improvements during the year 2019. It's $109,642.50. Note, this resolution supersedes Resolution 19-2500, which was approved on July 22nd, 2019. Agenda item number 11, Resolution 19-2505, approving an affordable housing plan update as required by the Illinois Affordable Housing Planning and Appeal Act. That's 310 Illinois compiled statute 67-1 et sequitur. Agenda item number 12, Resolution 2506, authorizing the approval and execution of the second addendum to the employment agreement by and between the Village of Western Springs and Ingrid S. Velkme. Agenda item number 13, motion to approve the appointment of Cynthia Branken to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a 3-year term to expire in September 2022, and the reappointment of Brian Cronin to the Liquor Commission for a 3-year term to expire in June 2022.
Thank you. Excellent job. Just wondering if you want to throw some more numbers out there, or...
No, that was tough enough. TW and no more TWs.
Good job. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Clerk Ravet, may we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee John.
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph.
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman.
Aye.
And President Gallagher.
Aye.
The foregoing agenda items are adopted and/or approved.
Thank you. Moving on to tonight's reports. First, the monthly financial report. Trustee Rudolph.
Thank you, President Gallagher. For our reports for the month ending August of 2019, few summaries just to bring to everyone's attention. The Police Pension Fund posted negative results with unrealized losses of 1.25%, and that leaves us with a trailing 12-month return of 3.9%. The general fund ended August with an increase in the surplus due to the distribution of property taxes. The sales tax received in August were relatively flat, and year-to-date receipts are 2.26% lower than last year. Fines, interest income, and permits continue to trend high and exceed our projections, and expenditures are on target. The Water and Sewer Fund, which we, of course, all watch and track closely because it varies so much. The consumption bill in August was 12% lower than last year, and to date is 8.5% lower than last year. Again, I think reflecting some of our rain early in the year, and probably in August the water issue combined. So I think we saw some consumption reduction at that time.
Oh, I think so. I mean, with the watering ban alone, you know,
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, any other questions or comments regarding the reports?
Yes, I'm interested in the impact that the reconstruction or remodeling at Mariano's has on reducing that revenue source.
Right. Yeah, Director Torrey and I were talking about the sales tax reduction, and it's, you know, little bits here and there. We also, I think we had Starbucks closed for a couple of months. We have the remodeling at Mariano's, so.
Is there any need for us to consider an outreach to Mariano's to determine whether or not they're on schedule with the completion of their remodeling?
Director Scott and I have talked to, or Director Scott has talked, I've talked to him about this, and we are very concerned also, and also that it's becoming a Kroger's now, so, do you have any comments on that?
Most of the information is just anecdotal from store manager that they were eager to get it completed as well. And fortunately, we couldn't get a meeting scheduled just yet with corporate because this is their annual budget planning time as it is for ours. So no solid answers just yet. They were just hopeful that they'd get finished as quickly as possible and welcome customers back to a more convenient and less obstacle-filled store. So they're hopeful about the future is what they were saying, but we'll learn more in the next month or two.
Thank you.
All right. If no further questions, I'll make a motion to accept the August financial reports.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
May we have a roll call vote, please, Clerk Horvath?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Rudolph.
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee John.
Aye.
Financial reports are hereby accepted.
Thank you. Does that conclude your report?
Sorry, that concludes my report. Thank you, President Gallagher.
Thank you, Trustee Rudolph. Moving on to my report, I'm sorry to say that resident Ray Jessica has tendered his resignation from the C-SPAR Board of Directors. He has served Western Springs and C-SPAR in that role for over 20 years, but he feels it's time now to step aside and give someone else the chance to serve on this rewarding board. C-SPAR, as you know, is the regional organization that provides recreational services for our youth and adults with special needs. But tonight, on behalf of the entire board, I want to publicly thank Ray for his outstanding service over 2 decades of work. On September 12th, I gave a brief presentation at a dinner hosted by the American Public Works Association to welcome a group of Australian public work professionals who are visiting cities throughout the U.S. and Canada to learn about best practices regarding asset management, long-term financial planning, and technological innovation as they relate to public works. Also there was Steve Morley, Mayor of Elmhurst, and Franklin Park Mayor Barrett Peterson. We all gave just very brief presentations about our communities and how we incorporate those specific topics within our Public Works Department. I'd like to especially thank Casey Bernanke, who put together the talking points for our discussion. On September 16th, I attended the WCMC, West Central Municipal Conference Executive Committee meeting. We welcomed 2 new members to the Executive Committee, Bellwood Mayor Andre Harvey and Broadview Mayor Katrina Thompson. At that meeting, we discussed the new motor fuel tax law, small cell tower ordinances, and transportation funding items. With regard to transportation funding and procuring grants, the new shared fund for larger regional projects awarded over $6 million to Central Council members, the Village of Berwyn, McCook, Hodgkins, and Countryside. The Central Council has also received a LTA grant, I think that stands for Local Technical Assistance, to conduct a comprehensive stormwater plan for the Central Council members. You'll remember we had a grant to do the transportation plan. Now this is the next layer, so we'll be able to map out regionally and hopefully be set to access more federal funds to address those issues in the future. There will be a new call for projects for central STP local funding from January to March of 2020. And there will be new STP local methodologies to adopt in order to qualify for and retain grant money. And then from September 19th to the 21st was the annual IML, Illinois Municipal League Conference downtown. Trustee Chen and I attended, and the keynote speaker was the author of Pursuit of Happiness. I didn't write his name down here.
Gardner.
Chris Gardner, thank you. And Senator Dick Durbin also spoke. We heard presentations on topics including liquor control, changes in the retail market, municipal budgeting, the legalization of marijuana, which was standing room only, attracting millennials and local government websites, and of course, our own Attorney Jerusic's TIF tips. There is a synopsis of all of the presentations, and I'll pass this along, of all of the presentations in this booklet that are being passed around. And there's also instructions there where you can download an app, and all of the PowerPoints from each of those presentations are on that app that you can access for information. And then, of course, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Nicole, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, you summarized both of the breakout sessions that we both went to.
Well, if
That
you
was a good
wanted to
job.
add on.
No, I mean, you covered it.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then on September 30th, Director Turi, Manager Velkme, and I will be traveling to North Lake to tour the recent rehabilitation of Addison Creek wetland, which helped the community reduce flooding in that area. All trustees are invited to attend. That'll be the morning of September 30th. And that concludes my report. Manager Velkme?
Thank you, President Gallagher. I'm going to begin with Director Kenny. He has a report on an issue that just came up this afternoon.
Thank you. I'm going to read this to you because my voice is kind of going, and we just found out about this, so I want to make sure I'm accurate on what the information I give you. So there's a federal law that's regulated by the state through the Department of Health Care and Family Services that regards reimbursement that we get through Medicaid, not Medicare, but Medicaid. This funding is for an entity that is eligible to receive supplemental reimbursement, which we do qualify for. It's been discussed, frankly, in a lot of chiefs forums, and there's been a lot of misinformation that's gone back and forth. And we've been told that direction would be forthcoming from the state. Well, forthcoming occurred at 2 o'clock this afternoon, when I received an email from the President of the Illinois Fire Chiefs outlining a conference call he had been on with the Department of Health Care and Family Services, that to be eligible for this reimbursement, we had to execute an IGA with that department. And the catch was, the IGA had to be completed by October 1st in order to be eligible for any of that funding. In addition, the IGA specifically says it has to be signed by your government leader and not the head of the fire EMS agency, which, based on the timeline, obviously with the village board meeting tonight and it not being on your agenda, keeps you from being able to take action on it. So I notified the manager and was directed to contact our village attorney, which I did. I forwarded the IGA to him for his review, and we had a discussion. And fortunately, we're able to come up with, on Thursday night, you have a public meeting for your strategic planning session that's already has an agenda posted. The recommendation was to revise the agenda, add this as an action item that you could discuss, and if you so desired to take action on, you could do that that Thursday night. I wish I could tell you that I'm more versed in this law. I don't like being in this position, but I'm not. However, I did get a chance to go back to our billing agency in 2018. The impact to us, what we received was basically about $2,000 total in reimbursement, so it's a very small percentage of our ambulance calls. But again, any funding that we're entitled to, we should look into taking action on. So I'll give it back to the village manager or the village attorney if they'd like to add anything.
So we will place that on the agenda for Monday night and take action on that immediately.
Thursday night?
Thursday,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
What kind of notice do we have to give for that? Just a 3-day notice, or?
I think
It's
it's
48 hours. just
48
open
hours,
meetings act
okay.
notice. There'll be a resolution, typical, just standard approving
Okay.
of an intergovernmental agreement resolution I'm going to draft. And it's a standard templated IGA. There's really no flexibility for us to make any changes to it. It's more perfunctory or ministerial, so, you know, if we can get it done this Thursday night, we can meet the submittal deadline.
You need a signature and a date, right?
That's
all
about
you
it.
need. All right.
An approving document, like a
Yeah.
resolution that's certified.
Well, I applaud you both for getting this up on Thursday. $2,000 is $2,000.
Exactly.
Correct.
And
Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And Chief, you'll have a memo for us for that
I'll
meeting?
pull one
Yes.
together, yes.
Thank you.
Kind of summarizing the information I just gave you now.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to have Director Supert give a brief report on the status of well number 5.
Yeah, so I have positive news on well number 5. Last week, the drilling team reached our target depth of 1,535 feet. If any of you have been out there, you would have noticed that they disassembled the drill rig and hauled that off on Thursday and Friday. They're going to continue this week to disassembling the drilling equipment, and they'll be bringing in the test pumping equipment probably towards the end of this week or early next week. Our target is to begin pumping, test pumping the week of October 7th. Then we'll get an idea of what the water quality and volume information will be for the well, and that will kind of lead us into the third phase of the well project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Then tollway news, of course. There will be utility work along the tollway. It will begin this week. They are relocating fiber along the railroad tracks for BNSF. Some trees have already been cleared in that area and in the corner of the Public Works yard, and we expect more of that clearing to happen this week also. In addition to the permit parking that we have over at the Service Club pool, we have put in 20 additional metered parking spots because we've had an outcry from our commuters that they want to have those metered parking spots. So we will have 20 additional of those. So, and thank you, Director Turi, for spearheading that. So, as of tomorrow, good. So we will have that. Also, Director Turi and I have been in a number of budget meetings with staff, and over the past few weeks, and your staff liaison for your committee will be contacting you in the near future to schedule your meeting where you'll discuss the budget. And of course, later on this week, we have the strategic planning session at the South Firehouse, and it will begin at 6:15 p.m. I'd also like to thank Director Turi for all of her work on the bonds and so forth. So it was a very good outcome, and it is also a very good positive reflection of the village too. So
Absolutely, and the finance department, I mean, that's really, that translates to an excellent rate, so thank you.
And that completes my report.
I have a question.
Yes.
Ingrid, I've noticed that trucks that bear the signage of utility pole inspection vehicle, taking a look at poles that have streetlights in my neighborhood. Is that something that
That may
precedes
be, yes, that may be related to that, the 5G.
Telecommunication,
Yes, that could be, they have not notified us of anything that they're doing out there.
Okay.
I have a question too. And going back to the water, I just want to clarify. During the whole time period, we test the water levels every single day, and we have very strict requirements that we have to follow for safety. And had there ever been any test that exceeded any of those, we would have instantly taken the correct
Yes.
procedures, correct? I
Correct,
just want to make sure
yes.
that we don't have any.
Because I drink the water too.
So do I.
So, and,
so do
and all of us do, so we want to make sure that we have good water. And I do not know of any instance where we had any,
No, I'm not
Test
aware of
that
any
we-
instances where we had
No.
any testing exceed any of the MCL limits. Obviously, with the secondary MCLs, we were struggling with some of those, but we were aware of those kind of
The ones that are the smell and
Correct,
taste.
and that's specifically the iron and the TDS.
Okay, understood.
But not the primary MCLs. And as Aaron mentioned at the last meeting, we're required, we do testing 3 times a day at the water treatment plant, and then we have certain IEPA requirements that we submit on a daily basis to an independent lab.
And what happens in the event that we would trigger any sort of test result that exceeds those?
It would depend on the test result that gets flagged. So
Understood.
if it's like a bacteria-related issue, we would likely issue a boil order.
Okay.
If it is more of a mineralization sort of issue, then we would have to either utilize an emergency connection or change how we're utilizing our pumping and treatment process.
Okay.
A lot of that depends on the specific scenario and the time of year. Depending on which wells we have running, we can bypass some treatment to put certain wells directly to distribution, which may alleviate the particular issue that gets flagged. Because all 3 of our wells have different chemistry. So again, I couldn't give you a specific answer unless we knew what the scenario was.
Okay. But I'm just clarifying, or just that we never had a day, we never had a test when anything exceeded any of those. So we always had safe water to drink despite the aesthetic irritations, which I understand were significant, and depending on residents and where they lived, were worse for others. But we never had a situation in which we had unsafe water, correct? Okay, all right, thank you.
Dr.
Correct,
Seifert, I
and-
think I asked you this before. What does MCL stand for, and how many levels do we have? We heard about initial, primary, and then secondary.
Yeah, so there's it's maximum contaminant level. So that is set by IPA, and it's different for each contaminant or different item in the water. Some of them are measured in parts per billion, some parts per million. Some are measured in milligrams per liter. In the issue related to the radium or the uranium, those are measured in picocuries per liter. So we have a full list of that. You can find that. You can find some of that information on the village website, the common ones. Also, our consumer confidence report. That's a PDF, and we mail that out to every resident in town at the end of June, early July. That has all of that information as well, and you can also find that on the village website.
I just wanted to add also, when Chris Coffey from Channel 5 was out here, they did not show that during his piece, but we actually took him to the water plant and did a test right there in front of him. So that told him that, yes, it is safe water to drink. And I share that concern too. And I don't want to drink anything that's unsafe either, but I've been drinking this for over 20 years,
Yeah.
coming here every day, so.
And the results of the tests are, I mean, they're on the website, they're on the Illinois
Correct,
website.
yes.
Other municipalities nearby, you can look and see what their results are. I mean, you can compare. Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Well, can I ask one more question about the well number 1, the shallow well? We are told that it doesn't go through the RO system.
Correct.
So how does it get treated? I know it's blended in with the well, whichever well is not down. In this case, it was 4. Yes, okay. So what does that mean, that it doesn't go
Yeah,
through
so
the
the only
RO
treatment that
system?
well number 1 gets is chlorination, and that's to
Okay.
deal with any potential bacterial issues.
Okay.
It just so happens that adding chlorine to the water is an oxidizing agent, which actually makes the iron issue worse. So it pulls that iron that's in solution out, and that's where you get to see that red color. So it's kind of a double-edged sword with that respect. So it does not go through any softening process, so that's why well number 1 has high iron and high total dissolved solids in it. It actually, ironically enough, has very good ratings on a lot of other water quality measurements. So, for example, it has very, very low radium levels compared to some of our deep wells. So it kind of depends, and that's where you kind of look at how your different operating scenarios are. And when we have these different emergency scenarios where we have to bring well number 1 online.
Sorry, so basic question, going through the RO process softens the water?
Yes, so the
Okay.
RO treatment process, essentially, when you have the pure RO water that comes out at the end of it, it's essentially distilled water. It's
Right.
ostensibly pure H2O.
Right.
As Aaron mentioned at the last meeting, distilled water is not actually something you would normally drink
Sure.
or work
Yeah.
with. It presents all sorts of issues, not only just for consumption, but just in terms of your appliances and that sort of stuff. So we do blend a portion of the water back.
Sure.
But that's essentially what the RO process does.
Right, but if the well number 1 water is not going through that process, then it's not getting
No, it is,
softened?
so it's not, the TDS and iron are not lowered as
Right,
part of from
as
well
part
number
of that
1.
process, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything
That concludes
else?
my report, yes.
Okay, thank you, Manager Valkney. Attorney Jurusik?
Just briefly, there's an updated downtown North TIF schedule in your packet. Couple minor adjustments. One was tonight's approval of the ordinance setting the public hearing in the JRB. We had originally scheduled to do that at the last meeting on the 9th, but we did it tonight, so that's a 1-week adjustment, but that doesn't change the overall schedule. There's still an anticipated approval date of December 16th at the end of the year. Just 2 other items. The Joint Board of Review meeting, that's October 10th, 4:30 in this boardroom. For anybody interested in coming, it's an open meeting, public meeting, for both board members, staff, and the public. And then the public hearing that we'll have on whether to move forward with the TIF district or not will be before this board. You'll conduct it. President will chair it. It'll be a short meeting, depending on comments from the public. Staff will make a presentation. There will be an ordinance to adopt, after that point, but that will be on November 11th. And then that's really it. There will be a minor, there's been a couple minor adjustments to the TIF plan, and I will talk about those both at the JRB meeting and the public hearing, but just for everybody's kind of notice. Our original TIF plan that we made available to the public back in August identified 2 PIN numbers, they're property index numbers. Those PINs were correct. Those PINs are part of the Cook County record. They're part of the Sidwell map. But actually, each of those PINs had been divided by Cook County tax assessor into PIN A1 and PIN A2 essentially because they're condo properties. When I went through and double checked both the legal description and the PINs, I noticed that. So our consultant has updated those. There's basically 4 more PINs, the 2 underlying PINs. 1 and 2 have been, expanded to be PIN 1A and 1B in both instances. That's really the only edit. The legal description was fine. That's the TIF plan that we'll move forward with at the JRB and at the public hearing. But since we did make a minor amendment to it, at the end of the public hearing on November 11th, I will have an ordinance just making an amendment to that plan. If there are any other amendments between now and then, which we don't anticipate, we will bring those to everybody's attention. But those are really the only adjustments to the schedule, and that amendment to the TIF plan is also now called out in your schedule as well. That's it. Everything else seems to be tracking, as presented. No further report tonight.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you.